Welcome to Faces of Sterling. I'm Terry Ackerman, your host, Town Administrator in Sterling. Each segment of our show, we profile people who are making a difference and contributing to the Sterling community. And today, we're very honored to have with us Representative Kimberly Ferguson. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Kim, how long have you been a state representative and which towns do you represent?
Well, I'm in my second term currently, and each term consists of 2 years. So I'm really in my third year. I represent 6 towns now due to redistricting: Holden, Princeton, Paxton, Rutland, half of Sterling, and half of Westminster.
So you represent half of Sterling, and Representative Hank Naughton represents half of Sterling. How does that work exactly?
Well, actually, I think it works just fine. You have to have 2 offices and 2 reps that really work well together and communicate and share well. So ours works great. And what happens is, you know, if we get a constituent call, one of our offices will deal with it and pick up the phone and call the other office so they're aware of what's going on. Sometimes if it's an issue that one rep has more experience with than the other, we'll hand it off to that person and say, you know, I know you dealt with this a year or 2 ago. Here's the issue again. Can you help us with that? And really, when it comes to things like local aid or a select board issue or, you know, municipal issue right within the town, we just share it. There's no way that you can, like, you know, cut a town in half and say, well, I only want half of the local aid, or because I only represent half of Sterling. So when we advocate for things on Beacon Hill, we advocate for the town of Sterling. So actually, when you look at voting, you have 2 votes out of 160, not just 1. So it actually works in your favor a lot of the time.
Excellent. I'm curious to know, how did you first get involved in politics?
Well, Terry, it's an interesting story. I always feel that when you ask someone if 10 years or 20 years down the road they are where they thought they were going to be, and my answer would be no, not at all.
Right.
I was in the education field. I still am. I'm a speech pathologist. I was teaching, etc. My family was always politically active and aware. My dad had been elected to some positions and always encouraged me to pay attention and exercise my right to vote, and I always have. But then when an opportunity arose to run for school committee for the Wachusett Regional School District, I did do that. Served a 3-year term, but feeling that, you know, being a member of a 20-member committee was frustrating at times for me.
Sure.
Because I felt that there really wasn't a lot of opportunity for real debate and discussion with that many members.
Right.
Then I decided to run for a seat on the select board and served. I was in my 3rd term when I decided to run for the state rep seat. Had served as chairman and vice chairman and had a good record of service. And I felt that it was time to, you know, look at the state rep seat. But I really did enjoy my municipal service.
Great. So Kim, how did you decide to make the move from municipal leader to state government?
Well, it wasn't an easy decision, Terry, and actually, if you had asked me 10 years ago if I would be a current state representative, I think I would have said no way. It was an interesting move. I, as you know, had been on the school committee and then the select board in Holden for 8 years, and our current sheriff, Lou Evangelitis, was leaving his state representative seat to run for sheriff. And the opportunity presented itself. I thought about it for quite a while, talked to some people in the community, talked to some people in Boston, and, you know, really decided that the time was that time to do it. So I love it, but it was something that, again, it took some decision making and some careful thought as to what impact that would have for me and the community.
So what was the transition to state government like? Is it what you expected or different?
No, it wasn't what I expected. And I will say, Sheriff Lou Evangelitis did do a wonderful job of transitioning his office to me and my new office and staff, and did try to prepare me as much as he can. But when you hit the ground running and you're actually involved in the job, there's just nothing that prepares you for actually being there and doing the work every day. I had some great experience under my belt, but there are a couple of things that are interesting. Things move very slowly down there at the State House, or they move at a rapid pace. You know, we might get budget information or a bill that we have to review that's several hundred pages, and we only have 24 to 48 hours to do that. But then we'll be waiting for another piece of legislation that maybe we wait 8 weeks to see on the House floor. So getting used to the fact that some days I don't even eat lunch and I don't even set foot in my office, even though I'm in the building from 9 in the morning to 6. And then there are other days that we can sit in the chamber for hours, you know, debating things and trying to move a question. And, you know, there was an example recently that I was in the chamber for about 8 hours, and we got some things accomplished, but not as much as I had hoped we would that day. So, you know, it's a great experience, but until you actually are doing the job, you have no idea how the time demands are and what's expected of you within a 24-hour period.
So you were a school committee member for about 3 years and a selectman for, I think you said 8 years. Do you think that the municipal experience helped you in being a state legislator, and in what ways?
Oh, absolutely, Terry. And when you talk about the job and my expectations and things, and you know, one of the things that I was very lucky to have when I got down to the State House was all my municipal experience to draw on. So there are so many issues that you're faced with, whether it's dealing with a funding issue, a road issue, even just knowing my towns the way that I know the towns of the First Worcester District.
Right.
I think all the years that I spent serving with people on boards or building relationships with people really helped me transition with that. And so I really do feel that municipal experience and experience with schools and just, again, knowing them and knowing the people that I need to do business with, if you will, really made it a lot easier in a sense for me. And there were still a lot of things that I had to, you know, learn more about, because being a rep, you're expected to know a lot about a lot of things.
Right.
And you're expected to know it quickly. So it also freed up some time for me to study up on some other issues that maybe I wasn't as familiar with, that were votes that we were going to be taking.
Right.
So, you know, I absolutely feel that it had a big impact on me.
Kim, what are some of the accomplishments that you've been able to enact, and what are some of the other initiatives that you'd like to work on?
Well, it's such an honor to be down there, and I've only been down at the State House 3 years, which people don't believe it, but it takes over 10 years sometimes for a bill to actually make it through the process and be enacted, which is a little bit scary. But some of the things that I've already been just very proud of myself, and you know, that is a nice accomplishment, is I've been able to hit the ground running down at Beacon Hill and work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for important issues to our towns, such as local aid, Chapter 70 money. We increased circuit breaker in the school budget for the past couple of years, regional school transportation. Those were all things that I've heard from my towns that they really wanted me to advocate for during the budget sessions every
Definitely.
year. And I've continued to do so, and actually been part of some nice amendments on the House floor and some petitions to increase the funding, which we did do. A few other accomplishments I would say are related to specific committee work. I do serve on the Joint Committee on Education and the Joint Committee on Disabilities. And one of the issues that we faced last year was an issue with our collaborative schools and the oversight of our collaborative schools, and some abuses or fraud within their monetary situations. And one of the things on the Joint Committee on Education that I was able to do was to advocate and work to quickly pass a bill that would help the legislature help our school districts and our collaborators kind of clean up some of the programs and push that one through. And also I was very involved with a hearing aid bill. A lot of people don't realize this, for children.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, insurance unfortunately did not cover hearing aids from birth on up, and it's an extraordinary expense in a lot of occasions for families. And so I was part of an effort with several people to lobby to actually pass a bill that now requires insurance companies to cover hearing aids for children. And we worked with Children's Hospital in Boston and several people to advocate for that passage. In terms of, you know, in the future, I have a lot of legislation that I'm currently working on. Again, budget every year is something that we work on really all year.
Right.
I mean, as you know, we hear a lot about it in the spring, but we really are involved year-round in that. So I'm going to continue to do that. Local legislation, we've had bills from several of the towns, or all of my towns actually. Sterling has had a few local petitions that your delegation,
Yes,
Senator
we have.
Flanagan, Representative Naughton, and myself have worked on to move them through the process, because it's not simple.
Right.
It does take time and it takes effort, and so those are the kinds of things that I've been just really happy with. And my committee work is very important to me. I do have some demanding committees, so I've been proud of that. So.
Well, you've been a great help to Sterling.
Thank
you
you
for your terrific work on that.
Thank you.
What do you like best about being a representative? And what do you like least, or what's the hardest thing about being a rep?
Well, I have to say, and I say it frequently, I think people get tired of hearing of it, but it is an honor to be a rep and to be the representative from the 1st Worcester District. And there are a lot of things that I do love about the job. I love the fact that, I have 6 towns that are similar in a lot of ways, but they do have their own personalities and they're different. And the job is very exciting that way. I wake up in the morning and every single day is different for me, which is great. And although that can be a challenge at times, there are so many people that I work with, and being able to help people and be a resource for people, is something that I do enjoy. And when you do help someone that maybe they came to you as the last resort, you really feel like you made a difference in someone's life. So I like that. What do I like the least? I would have to say the traffic on the Mass Pike. That's one thing that really, I have to basically try to schedule my morning around that and not get caught up in that. The frustration at times about how slow things can move. If you know that you have something that's very important to people, that's common sense, that, that you want to see move forward. Sometimes the powers that be in leadership just decide it's not time for that. So that can be frustrating, but again, there's some great people that I work with down there, and we work together and we feel that we are doing our best for this area. So it's a great job. I really do love it.
So Kim, you said you're on 2 committees, and I've always wanted to know, how does a representative get placed on a committee?
Well, it's interesting. Being in the minority party, I do have more of a choice, I would say, in terms of what I would like, because there are so few of us, so we get spread around a little bit more. I think that really the Speaker Robert DeLeo, and the Minority Leader, Brad Jones, do work together and work very carefully to try to place people on committees. Typically what happens is you do get brought in for an interview. You have a paper that you fill out that says, what committees are you interested in and why? And again, in the minority party, they do spend a little bit more time matching people up. With my background in education and special education, I was so thrilled that I am the ranking member on the Joint Committee on Education and the Joint Committee on Disabilities.
Wow, terrific.
And it's been a great placement for me. I really, know a good deal of information going into those committees and just can rely on my experience. And what has happened is, again, which is nice, I've become more of a resource for my colleagues in those areas, where they'll come to me now and they'll say, all right, cut to the chase, tell me about this bill, why should I support it, why do you want me to support it or not? And so I've really enjoyed that. I've also been placed on a few commissions as well that you don't hear as much about, but some of the ones that I'm involved in right now that again was an appointment either by the governor's office or the speaker's office. I'm on the Brain Injury Commission, which just finished up some really important work for brain injured individuals in the Commonwealth. I'm on the committee, the Commission on Postpartum Depression in women, which is really, a tough subject, but we really need to look at that. And I also was appointed to a commission looking at the CHINS law, the new CHINS reform, Child in Needs of Services law that has to deal with some really sad cases of runaways and children that have been abused, etc. That then the court system steps in and there are some custody issues, things like that. And so we're looking at a bill that just passed and trying to implement that. So it's a very heavy duty commission. So.
Yeah. Wow. What would you most want the people of Sterling to know about state government?
Well, Terry, I think unfortunately, especially on the national level, we do hear a lot of negative news and a lot of, real partisan politics in Washington, D.C. specifically. And we do have a hardworking delegation from Massachusetts down in Washington that hopefully doesn't get involved in a lot of that. But there are a lot of negative stories right now. And I think one of the things that I do try to explain to people is that's not how it works down on Beacon Hill. And although there are some politics that are partisan, that really, especially in the Central Mass delegation, including our Worcester friends and our North Worcester friends, we work really hard for the people of the Central Mass area, and we work together. And we have a very strong delegation that is able to do that. So all the negativity and all the stories, that's not what happens with the majority of people on Beacon Hill. And, you know, we do care about our communities. And the other thing that I do think people find frustrating, and I know you do as well sometimes, is the fact that the wheels do move slowly in state government.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes common sense doesn't prevail,
Right.
and we have to go the long way.
Yeah.
And, you know, that can be very frustrating for people. And I'll give you an example too. There were over 6,000 new pieces of legislation
Wow.
filed in January for this 2-year session.
Wow.
6,000 bills. Probably about 7 or 8% of them will really see the light of day and be moved to the House and Senate for a vote. They'll all get heard by a committee, but then they sometimes go into the black hole of study, or they just don't move.
Right.
So, you know, there might be a piece of legislation that someone's really, really excited about, and they should be, but then the frustration comes when, you know, they think that it will move a lot quicker.
Right.
And it doesn't. So that can be frustrating.
Absolutely. Do you utilize any interns, or do you have any summer opportunities for young people to get involved? What's about?
Yeah, I've been lucky actually that I've had some really great interns that have worked in my office, and I do have some right now actually from the town of Sterling that are working with me, which is great. Basically what the rep offices do is, you know, we often take college students at Suffolk University, et cetera, that have an interest in politics, political science, law, and they work in the office sometimes 1 day a week, 2 days a week, just to really get experience down in the State House. In the summer, we take more interns because there's a lot of work that can be done, and we can take younger interns, like as low as high school age, and as long as they can get themselves into the city and into the State House, we're happy to take them. Unfortunately, sometimes we have so many that we have to turn some away, and we try to give them to another office, because I do give priority to interns from my district.
Absolutely.
Who know the district and know me, so we do that. And again, it's a great opportunity. I've had interns that have started in the office, worked for me, and then moved on to either a legislative aid position, a policy analyst position. They've gotten jobs later on in the private sector down in Boston, and having that State House experience is amazing for them.
Absolutely.
It's really great on their resume, and until you work there, you don't understand it, but the history of the building, and there's always something going on there. And
Right.
I do encourage my interns to get involved, to learn the building, to go on a tour, they have workshops for interns all summer, put on by Martha Coakley, Bill Galvin,
Wow,
the
that's
Speaker of
great.
the House, the governor's administration. There's so many opportunities for them, and I think if you ask my interns, they really are enjoying
Oh, yeah.
themselves. Even though they work hard for me, but they also really have a good time in the building. So it's a great opportunity, and I tell students to give me a call my office, and we'll see if we can fit you in.
Great. So if constituents want to get in touch with you or learn more about state government, what's the best way to contact you?
Well, Terry, there are a few ways that they can get in touch with us. One of the issues that people have is, we're all busy, everyone's active, so email works really well for me in my office, and I can give you the website and the email address.
Okay.
It's Kimberly Ferguson, so KIMBERLY .Ferguson, FERGUSON, @mahouse.gov. And that's a great way for people to email me, and I can respond even at midnight when I need to. But the other thing that people are finding very helpful is there is a website that the legislature has done a really nice job creating, where you can research a bill, you can look at our committees, you can look at our sessions online, you can find another legislator in the area, and I can give you that one as well. That's malegislature.gov. And I know people, even our kids in the classrooms, have done a really nice job. They will email me from that website even and ask me a question about something they saw online or a bill, and I know people are finding that site very helpful.
Great.
The other thing is I do have an office in Boston, and the phone number for that is 617 722-2263, extension 4. And my staff will do, the best that they can to get people an answer within 24 to 48 hours. So there are a lot of ways that they can get in touch with me, and, we try to do our best to respond and get the people the answers they need, so.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim Ferguson, for being on the show, and thank you for all the great work you're doing on behalf of Sterling and your other towns.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure, and it's always great to work with you, Terry. You do a wonderful job communicating with the office and checking in on legislation and budget and things like that, so thank you.
So thank you for watching, everybody at home. Thanks to the crew at SLCT. This is Faces of Sterling. I'm Terry Ackerman, your host. Hope to see you next time.